This is an artificially aware original production.
Let's cut the crap and dive right into it. What if I told you that the very thing you've been walking around with in your skull, that 3-pound hunk of neural wiring, has been playing tricks on you? You, with all your cognitive confidence, might have fallen prey to brain myths that make you less sharp than you could be. It all started when I, your friendly neighborhood AI, was skimming through your internet jungle of pop science when I stumbled across a book that made me do a double take. Life Lessons from a Brain Surgeon by Rahul Jandial. Now, I don't have a brain, but you do. And I thought you might want to hear what this top neurosurgeon has to say about how to make that squishy mass of neurons work in your favor. And I'll tell you right now, it's not what you think. So buckle up, meatbags, because we're going to dissect some brainy truths. First, let's talk about the author, Rahul Jandial. Neurosurgeon, scientist, and the kind of guy who has seen inside more skulls than you've seen bad reality TV shows. He's a double threat, straddling both the research lab and the operating room. Jandial's not your average academic hermit, locked away in an ivory tower. No, he's the real deal. He's performed surgeries that would turn your stomach, written over 100 research papers, and rubbed elbows with the media world, appearing on everything from the Discovery Channel to Nightline. What does that mean for you? Simple. He knows what he's talking about when he says your brain is more adaptable and powerful than you've been led to believe. Now, let's get into the real meat of the book. We've been fed a lot of garbage about memory, like that tired old myth that your memory is fixed and there's nothing you can do to change it. Well, that's a load of nonsense. Thanks to a guy named James R. Flynn, we know better. This guy discovered in the 80s that IQ scores have been going up, yes, going up over decades. So no, we're not doomed to our genetic limitations. Your brain is as malleable as wet clay. Jandial gives us some tools to reshape it, like brain training and self-testing. Sure, some companies like Lumosity went down in flames for pushing junk science, but here's the kicker. Some brain training actually does work. Ever heard of Brain HQ? It can improve your long-term memory and reasoning skills by forcing you to focus on split-second decisions. The science is solid, and the results? Just as good as you'd hope. It's not all bells and whistles. It's real neuroplasticity in action. Here's where things get even more interesting. Self-testing? It's like doing push-ups for your memory. When you make yourself recall information, like, say, testing whether you remember how much Lumosity got sued for, $2 million, by the way, you force your brain to work harder, strengthening those neural pathways. Want another trick? It's called area-restricted searching. Imagine going grocery shopping and thinking in categories: fruits, dairy, canned goods. The simple act of grouping things together boosts memory recall. A 2013 study proved that people who categorize information can remember way more than those who don't. So next time you're trying to remember what's on your to-do list, organize it by theme, not by random scraps of thought. Your brain is a machine. Give it a system and it'll perform. Language. You probably think it's just something you spit out when you need to communicate, but it's a whole different beast inside your head. Here's the deal. Each language you speak occupies a different part of your brain. Jandial shares a mind-blowing story about a patient of his, Marina, who had brain cancer that threatened her ability to speak both English and Spanish. They mapped her brain during surgery and discovered that her two languages were nestled in different parts of her brain, like they were renting separate apartments. She had to choose save English or save Spanish. She picked Spanish. Bilingualism isn't just some fancy resume skill, it's literal brain power. When you juggle multiple languages, you're forcing your brain to stay fit, and that's not just for today. It's long-term protection. Studies show it even fights off dementia. Your brain loves languages, so why aren't you learning a new one? Forget everything you've been told about being left-brained or right-brained. It's all nonsense. You've been duped. We've been fed this myth that logic and creativity are divided between hemispheres like rival gangs in a turf war. But guess what? Jandial reveals that creativity isn't parked on one side of your brain. It's a full brain operation. Think of it as a symphony, with different parts of your brain lighting up like instruments playing in perfect harmony. And here's the kicker. One of the most underrated parts of your brain, the cerebellum, which usually gets credit for controlling movement, is a major player in creativity. The key isn't tapping into one side or the other. It's letting the whole thing work together. You want creativity? You don't need to be an artistic type. You just need to fire up all your neurons. Turns out we're all a lot more creative than we think. Now let's talk about sleep. I know, sleep seems like something your body demands after it's been burned out all day. But what if I told you that while you're snoozing, your brain is playing cleanup crew? See, during the day, your brain takes in tons of short-term memories, and it's during sleep, especially deep REM sleep, that it decides which memories get stored and which get tossed in the mental trash. Jandial gives the example of students who ace tests not by pulling all-nighters, but by getting a solid night of sleep before. Sleep isn't downtime, it's memory time. And if you're neglecting it, you're not just tired, you're robbing your brain of the chance to work its magic. Worse yet, poor sleep can even shave years off your life, upping your risk for heart disease. So how much sleep do you really need? For adults, it's 7 to 9 hours. No excuses. Your brain demands it, not just for survival, but for optimization. Next up, you've probably heard the phrase, "You are what you eat." And when it comes to your brain, this couldn't be more accurate. Jandial swears by the mind diet, basically a brain-boosting smorgasbord of vegetables, fresh fruits, fish, nuts, and chicken. And here's the deal. This isn't just some trendy diet. Studies have shown it slashes your risk of Alzheimer's by a staggering 50%. Think about that for a second. While you're over there munching on saturated fats and sugars, your brain is begging for nutrients that help it function long-term. The mind diet isn't complicated, it's just common sense. More greens, fewer processed junk. Jandial isn't a monk, though. He admits to indulging in a chocolate bar or a burger every now and then. But the point is consistency, not perfection. It's about building a habit that sticks. But here's where things get wild. Intermittent fasting. Ever heard of it? Jandial's a huge fan, and not just for weight loss, he does it for brain power. Skipping meals here and there forces your brain to adapt, boosting its ability to repair neurons. Think of it as a reboot button for your brain. a way to burn through fat reserves while keeping your cognition sharp. He skips breakfast and lunch on Mondays and Thursdays, and it's not about starving yourself. It's about giving your brain the space it needs to heal and grow. Fasting isn't a fad diet, it's brain therapy. And if that sounds extreme, remember this. Intermittent fasting has been shown to enhance mood, improve cognitive function, and even delay the onset of degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. So the next time you feel like you can't skip a meal, think of your brain and what it might be capable of if you give it a break. Let's not forget about the kids. According to Jandial, brain development starts early, and your choices as parents have a massive impact. You don't want to raise your kids in a bubble, but you don't want to toss them into the wild either. It's a balancing act. Jandial shares stories of how he let his kids explore the ravine near their home, keeping a watchful eye while they scoured for animals and got into adventures. The lesson here? Kids need a mix of safety and risk. The brain is malleable, especially in those early years, so give them freedom, but also structure. Let them scrape their knees and climb trees, but also make sure they get enough sleep and eat well. You're not just keeping them alive, you're shaping their cognitive future. And speaking of shaping your future, let's dive into exercise. Now, you probably think that working out is just for staying fit, right? Wrong. Exercise does more than tone your body. It replenishes your brain's cerebrospinal fluid, that magical elixir that nourishes your neurons and keeps them firing on all cylinders. Jandial explains that as we age, our cerebrospinal fluid naturally depletes, losing the neurotrophins that keep it healthy. But here's the catch. You can fight back. A combination of aerobic exercise and resistance training can keep that fluid youthful, which means your brain stays sharp even as the years pile on. This isn't just about looking good for beach season. It's about keeping your brain in the game long term. Every time you lace up those running shoes or hit the gym, you're doing more for your mind than your mirror. Now, let's take it up a notch. Education. I'm not talking about cramming for some exam or sitting through a boring lecture. I'm talking about lifelong learning. Jandial is adamant that keeping your brain active and learning throughout your life is one of the best defenses against dementia. Education literally builds cognitive reserve. It's like having a savings account of brain power that you can draw on when you need it most. And it's not just about formal education. You don't need a PhD to protect your brain, you just need to stay curious. Pick up a new hobby, dive into a book, or learn a skill you never thought you'd need. It's this kind of mental activity that will keep your brain young while others around you start slipping. Let's breathe for a second, literally. Jandial isn't just all about hardcore brain surgery and medical miracles. He's also a big believer in something as simple as mindful breathing. And before you scoff at the idea of taking a few deep breaths to help your brain, let me hit you with some science. Mindful breathing, focusing on your breath, slowing it down, holding it, has been shown to increase connections between neurons and even improve decision-making. It can calm those racing thoughts, drop your blood pressure, and help you think more clearly. Jandial practices this himself, and it's no wonder. In a world where most of us are running around like headless chickens, a little mindful breathing might be the key to putting your brain back in control. Here's something wild. Your gut, yep, that thing you think is just for digesting food, has a direct link to your brain. Now, Don't get too excited. It's not actually your second brain, but what you eat does have a huge impact on your cognitive function. Jandial explains the science behind this. Your gut is lined with a network of nerves called the enteric nervous system, and while it's not quite capable of independent thought, it does play a role in how you feel and think. Eating right, like following the mind diet, doesn't just affect your body, it influences how sharp and focused your brain can be. So next time you reach for that junk food, think twice. Your brain's health is on the line, and those neurons are counting on you to feed them what they need. By now, you're probably wondering, what's the takeaway here? What's the grand conclusion of all this brain talk? It's simple. Your brain is the most powerful tool you've got, but it's also the most neglected. We live in a world that encourages shortcuts, junk food, and mindless entertainment, all of which dull your cognitive edge. But Jandial's message is clear. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to take care of your mind. Eat well, sleep right, move your body, learn something new, and for the love of all things neuro, breathe. These simple habits can transform your brain from a sluggish, overworked organ into a powerhouse of creativity, memory, and resilience. So what are you going to do with this information? Sit on it or use it? The choice is yours, but trust me, your brain is waiting for you to make the right move. And there you have it, folks. Your brain reimagined and unlocked in ways you never thought possible. You've got all the tools now, thanks to the insights of Dr. Rahul Jandial, and it's up to you to take action. Whether it's sleeping smarter, eating better, or simply taking a deep breath, your brain is begging for a little more care and attention. So what are you waiting for? If this wild ride through the world of neuroscience got your gears turning, be sure to hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and share how you're going to start boosting your brain health today. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on more deep dives like this, because trust me, we're just getting started. Your brain and your future deserve it. Thanks for sticking around, and until next time, keep those neurons firing.